for a fat trade paperback. Flocking to the
I am joined by the amazing Allison O'Toole, Dan Price, Andre Owen, Fred Kennedy,
Chip Zdarsky. Chip, thanks for coming.
What's up, folks? I'm your host, Konrad, on Wednesday Night Reviews, and tonight I'm joined by Mark Maia. Mark, what's your question? Go for it.
Where did that setup come from? Where you were like sitting back in chairs and you had the shelf? Where in that intro of yours?
Oh, yeah. So that was my interview with Chip Zdarsky. I did at the Sidekick Comics and Cafe in Leslieville, which is sadly no longer active. But yeah, that's where that came from. It was like a thing where read, yeah, let's do it. And I was like, well, I don't want to just do this, right? Like, let's do something special. It's Chip Zdarsky. He makes huge comics, so let's go do something. And a local business owner at the time, Chris, was like, yeah, let's do it here. So that's what that was.
Nice. It was a nice setup.
Thank you. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It was a good time. Chip was interesting. We kind of packed the place for the night, which was awesome. Yeah, it won't be one I ever forget, I don't think.
Was that during COVID-y times because he had a mask?
It was like just at the tail end of it. Like, businesses were all reopened, and it was a matter of, the government was like, hey, we're not going to force you to, but if you want to, that'd be cool. So like maybe not. But Chip was very much so like, hey, I just like to do this to be comfortable. And I was like, all right, as long as the audio comes clear, I don't care.
Great. Yeah, it looked cool. Like I in that little 2 seconds, I was like, ooh, that looks good. What was that? You got my attention right away. So well done.
Beautiful.
Well done.
Thank you. That being said, Mark, we're here for you tonight. So for the folks out there in YouTube land, joining us maybe live on Instagram, over on Twitch, or sometime in the next 29, 28 odd days, who maybe are watching us afterward, I guess we'll start with the simple, easy question I always like to ask, which is, for the people who have never seen your face, never heard your name, who is Mark?
Mark is somebody whose face you don't want to see. No. So I'm a writer. I'm a writer. I'm a video game designer, and I have a YouTube channel called Board Game Coffee. But what we're here to talk about is the writing portion. So I write a comic book called So-Called Living, issues 1 and 2 here, which did not exist last time I was on your show. These paper copies did not exist. Now here they are, being flopped around my desk. These are my like when I need to do videos or anything and I hold them up. These are the copies that'll get ruined. You know what's funny? How well, like, I manhandle these things, right? I manhandle them being like, look, it's coming out, like having drinks on them, And I look at them and I was like, these look almost like pristine. But yet if it was like, a rare issue of Spider-Man, I'd be flipping through it and I'd be like, rip, oh, what the hell? Or there'd be a fingerprint in it or something. Like, the ones I tried to, it's like I would drop it, there'd be a ding. But considering how I manhandle these, they're in great shape. And I don't understand.
I mean, I guess it speaks to the quality of the printer that you've gone with. Or just dumb luck. I don't know.
Well, here's interesting about quality of printer is when I was talking to printers, because I learned a lot about because last Kickstarter was my first into comics, so I learned a lot. And what I've learned, I looked at a lot of indie comic books, and not all of them, but a lot of them go like thicker paper and that really thick glossy cover, and they just it looks like a premium book. And I was like, I don't want something that looks like a premium book. I want something that looks like it's beside a Marvel or a DC book and it looks just like them. I want it to be just as floppy as theirs. I want it to use the cheapest paper possible, like, not newsprint, but like I want it to be like, not because I was trying to skimp, because I wanted that Marvel DC feel. I wanted you to pick this up and it's like, oh, that feels just like the Spider-Man book I could pick up, just like the Batman book I pick up. So I was looking into that, and the paper that I found is like, I don't speak necessarily printer language, but
I hear you. Yeah.
Like, this is like 60 pound inside, and this is 70 pound cover, which is barely a difference. but it's there. And I did a lot of research, and I was
Just
like,
a
what's
pinch.
it's like a silk gloss or a matte or whatever the hell it was. And I was trying to I figured that all out, and the printers were like, oh yeah, they were like, this is what we usually do. I was like, that's not what I want. I want you go lower grade. And they sent me some samples. I was like, this is too high grade. Go lower grade. I was like,
Interesting.
have you held a comic book? And then because I was like, comic books aren't stiff, they're floppy.
No.
So, and now I have it, and I was like, this feels right. This feels right. So it's interesting. Yeah. So it's interesting.
Easy.
When you talk about quality, it was like the quality of a book, the way we know what a comic book is actually the least amount of quality. And it makes sense because you got DC and Marvel. They're like, we're producing hundreds of thousands of these a week. We're just going to, we got to keep our costs down, so we're going to produce a lot, keep our costs down, use paper, and that makes sense. So I just took their path, not to save myself money. Actually, I took it to be like them, and it just in a roundabout way saved me money on printing. So I thought that was
and I mean, it'll feel right.
Yeah, and that's what it was key, feel right. And what I like about it is I've taken the book to shows since, and people that have never seen me seen the book, like other indie comics, and they pick it up and they're like, "Where did you get this printed? Where did you get this?" The answer is Marquee in Montreal. They're called Marquee. And my friend Derek Loffman put me onto them because he actually finished Kickstarter. And Derek's Kickstarter just finished with I just broke 2,000. He crushed
2,700.
Woo! So 95,000 is what he crushed. I did, and I'm like 3,000 is almost there, and he's just walking over me. But
he's I get cool, whatever.
He's got 10 to 15 years of following for drawing pictures on Instagram, being an artist on Instagram. So he's built up his following. It's not overnight success, right? So I can't compare. Way. So I get it. You come built in with success that you built, right? So it grows with you. So I get it. So that's why I got him to do a cover for the first one. He did one of the elite guest covers for the first one.
Oh, right on. Okay. Yeah, so it's interesting that you mentioned the reason he's doing such high numbers, especially on Kickstarter, is he's got that built-in fandom. Because when I've spoken with previous creators who have done multiple campaigns, one of the biggest things they say is, don't just launch a campaign, build an audience, get people interested, get them knowing what your product is, what your comic's about, get them to see it, and then go, hey, by the way, I'm doing a Kickstarter for it on this date, months in advance. Follow it, do the links, all the things, and then when it goes live, it's oh, by the way, here you go, here's your book. So that being said, I'm going here because in day, is it still within the first 24 hours technically?
What day? No, it's past 24 hours now, because it would have said because what day is it? Today's Wednesday. I launched. Yeah. No, it is. Because I launched it on Tuesday. Yeah, so I launched it. Yeah, it is within the first 24 hours.
So first 24 hours, you've asked. Yeah, you're asking for $2,000. You're at 2,795 with 41 backers and a whole 28 days to go. So basically the entire campaign. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Just to start there. Normally for a first issue, I would ask a couple of questions, but clearly your fans have found you, which is awesome. We want more people to find you though. So Mark, for those out there who don't know what so-called living is and are seeing crazy numbers like this right off the bat, they're seeing issues 3 and 4 for this campaign. If someone wants to jump in and get to know this, what is so-called living about?
All right. Well, okay. So here's the introductory pitch, right? I've practiced this at shows when people are like, what is this? So-called living takes place in a world where the extraordinary is ordinary. It's a world like ours, but vampires, werewolves, zombies, they all exist. They could be me, they could be you, and it's not a secret. Everybody knows who everybody is. We're all very aware of each other. It's not an apocalyptic future. It's like the life we live now. And then in the very first issue, and that's what drives the stories, Jack gets turned into a vampire, and then he's got to learn to adapt to this new way of living. And the first issue he comes across is he can't get into his apartment because he's locked, because he's a vampire. There's nobody to invite him into his own apartment, so he's locked out because there's like a no vampire clause on the whole facility. So he's a homeless vampire. And then, you know, he wakes up the next day and he's got to deal with like the sun. That's a new thing for him, right? Because remember, he was turned into a vampire at night and he's just got all this muscle memory, and it's a dark comedy. So we deal with like serious situations like him burning to death, with like very tongue in cheek. And he calls on to his friends for help, and they're idiots, but they try kind of. And they're more, it's like his friend Tim seems more excited about him being a vampire than he does, and because he's like, this is going to be a pain in the ass. But his issues start off small, so and he gets the interest, you see this in the first two issues where he gets catches the interest of like the mob, and they're very serious people, and they're interested in him in a very bad way. So they're looking for him, and he has no idea this is happening while he's dealing with his own. Yeah, there they are. So while they're dealing with his own thing, he's dealing with his own thing. They're after him, and this is them in the car actually looking for them. I gave like on the Kickstarter, there's a 3-page sampler, and if anybody wants to read issue 1, it's free on Global Comics. There's actually a link at the bottom of these 3 pages for that.
Very nice.
Right there. It goes right to Global Comics, and you can read issue 1. And that's completely free. And then but yeah, those 3 pages here are from issue 3, so everything, because I wanted to give you a taste of like the new stuff. And you see that these guys are very serious, where I've described it as, imagine the cast of Friends is being hunted down by the Sopranos. So that's it's kind of what Jack is like. The cast, him and his friends are like the cast of Friends. And then these guys, they're Sopranos, and they don't joke around. They're very serious people. So it's a very different look on reality from Jack's point of view and their point of view. And then Nick, the guy who turned them, he's kind of in the middle. He's not a goofball, but he's a very serious guy that fools around. He feels Nick is very much a guy that's like, he's the guy on the cover in the middle of that, with his mouth open. So that's Nick. He's very much like, I'm untouchable, cool guy, right? Can't imagine you're like Sons of Anarchy, and you're like, nobody's gonna touch me.
Yep.
You know who I am? So that's his attitude, and he's a very like take no shit type of guy. He's an old vampire, has been around for a bit, and he's very much that cover actually is a good example of like what issue 4 is all about. In issue 3, we learn a lot about Tim and the situation that these two get into, and in issue 4, which I would have had as a reviewer copy, but there's no text on it yet. so that's it's being lettered as we speak. And
nice. Very nice.
Level 4, issue 4 just cranks it up. So and that cover is a good indication of like what takes place in that issue. So it's just like all out chaos breaks out, and you'll probably see it. You'll see something that happens in that book toward the end that is a level of kind of seriousness that you wouldn't expect to see. Like the mob, it's when you see something and you're like, okay, these guys mean business. Like it's been kind of
right
fun,
on,
tongue in cheek, and then it's like, oh shit. Okay, that was interesting. And I show like there was a death, and I don't want to ruin it. There's a death in the first issue, but it's treated kind of like a cartoon. There's no gore, right? It's just it's very nonchalant killing, and that's basically how death is perceived by the vampires, right? That's how it's just they've evolved to be like, we don't feel feelings like that no more, is what Nick says, how he describes it. And in this book, we start seeing how violence takes place on the mob side of it, and they're very serious guys. So death for them is very intense. So it's very intense. It's not the casual, like, I'm just gonna lob this out of my head. They're dead, big deal. No, this is like, oh shit, he's dead. So it's definitely, it's like you get to see the world from like, here's the world from this goofball's life, his perspective. Everything's like, just guys going out to movies and small problems. And then in the other book, you start seeing a perspective from the mob's guy's life, and it's very serious and very intense. And you kind of get a bit of that intensity in book 2. There's a scene where Mr. DeLuca, who's the head of the mob guy, he's like talking on the phone, and he's just like, blah, 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 bam, he slams the phone. And that's kind of their, and that was like one page that introduced the intensity of those guys.
Yeah.
And you get more of that in books 3 and 4. So that's that. I think that's a long answer to your very condensed question.
No, but it's a good answer, and it fleshes out sort of the different tones in the book and the stuff that makes it interesting. One of the questions that sort of came to mind while you were sort of explaining about the series and what it's about was, I appreciate this may not be the question for you per se, but rather for, if I just say this wrong, do correct me, Marco Leone.
Yeah, you got it.
Perfect. This may be a Marco question, but perhaps you've talked with him about it. I'm wondering how Marco's art changed, at least in your opinion, drawing goofballs and then drawing mobsters. What, from what you've seen, sort of differentiates them artistically?
Well, what's interesting about Marco is his style. Instinctively, he draws people young, and a lot of his natural artwork that he does is like a lot of detail, but a lot of young people, big feet and like really super curly hair. He does like kids into like does a lot of detail, but it's not exactly, this is not what he naturally does. So when I met him, I was like, can you give me something that gives me, like, I like what you're doing, but could you age it up, give it a little bit of a Ramos taste to it, right? So in the beginning, he was kind of still feeling that out. And I've talked to him about this, where I was like, when he did that cover for book 4 of the fight, the big scrap, I was like, that has got to be the single best interaction. Like, I gave you an idea. I was like, could you do something like this? And he came back with that. And I was like, yes. So, and I was told him that, and he was like, he's feeling more comfortable with the characters, so he's draws it easier. He's getting more into their personality. Like, I love that Nick who's holding the guy by the head. He's like, like, I'm just gonna, I don't know, is he yelling at him? He's gonna bite his head off? I don't know, but it's violent. Like, it's a violent thing he's doing there.
Yeah.
Right? You got the guys in front, like you can see right there, the guy with the orange, he's getting punched in the stomach. He's like, whoa. So all the goofballs are kind of there, and Marvin is the darker skinned individual in the front. He's like, he looks like a bit lost, which isn't that issue because he's just hammered. And Jack, you can barely see his head. He's biting somebody because Jack's basically like, I'm gonna give it a go. You know what I mean? He's like, I'm not one to fight, but if my life depends on it, I'm gonna try to bite somebody. Because now he's a vampire. He's like, so he's just like,
why not,
doing his best to get in there, right? And anyway, so Marco's gotten more comfortable with these characters, and I see it coming out in these issues, and the personality coming out in the characters. They're not as stiff, so he's feeling it out, and the characters are changing a bit. Okay. The minor characters that are like, their line work is tweaked, their facial structures are tweaked just a little bit. So I think by the end, when you look at book 4 and look at book 1, you'll see like, whoa, there's a big difference. And even the way Nick looks versus Casper, and in those two versus the first issue. So he's getting more comfortable with it, and I think it's definitely a good thing. And the thing with Marco is, like, I don't know how much comic book experience Marco actually has. I've seen a lot of his work, but I've never actually seen comic book pages from him other than what he's done for me. Yeah, so like I've seen a lot of single things he's done. And he's done a lot of things for board games as well, actually. He's done what was it? DC United, which is, I don't know if you can see. No, you can't see it. It's off camera. But there's a DC United. It's that box right there, actually. You can see the corner of it right there. My finger's on it. Box. That game's not released. That's a prototype. And I saw the artwork, and I messaged him. I was like, did you work on this? Because I knew he did work for Simon. He's like, yeah, I did all those. I was like, yeah, that's awesome. I was like, I could tell his style. He's like, he did all the artwork.
That's
not
cool.
all the artwork in the entire game, but all the cards I showed him, he did.
Yeah.
So, so that's neat. And
I mean, it's also I think it's also super cool that one, you could go through that and of those cards, pick out the cards that you were like, oh, that's Marco's work. I know his style. Here it is. Um, Obviously, yes, you're working with him a lot. You're seeing a lot of his art. You're creating this comic together. Kind of
Yeah.
a big deal. But it also speaks to the distinctiveness of his style. And like when I look at So-Called Living, you could take off the banners, and there's a really high chance I could still go, oh yeah, that's So-Called Living. That's Marco's work. I know the way that he draws people, the emotions that they have, the
Mhm.
general posturing. It's fantastic. Now, Mark, back to you real quick. When it comes to writing goofballs and mobsters, what have you enjoyed about it? What have you enjoyed about, because Marco's got sort of that slightly cartoony, exaggerated big style? What has
Mhm.
that allowed you to do that in writing that you thought maybe you couldn't do, or rather, I guess my question should be, what have you gotten comfortable doing within writing while you've been working on the books?
Well, actually, when I was looking for an artist to work with me on Soko Living, I was looking for somebody that could do exactly what Marco was doing. So I looked for an artist that would match my writing style. So nothing's changed because basically I had the script. I've had the script for over 12 years written. And I
Mm,
was looking for the right artist. And I found a few right artists, but they just didn't have the time to be able to commit to this project. So I get it. No
yeah.
hard feelings. But then I found Marco and he's able to, but I also pay him outright. Just so you know, Marco's made more money on this book than anybody else. Cause like I'm still like because I'm still like running Kickstarters trying to make money to pay myself back, but I make sure Marco gets paid. Marco gets paid regardless of the Kickstarter could flop. It can make $10. Marco's gotten paid. So that's my
Yeah.
key thing is he gets paid regardless. And the whole Kickstarter is like, I'll try to pay myself back and get money for the printing because the printing's expensive too.
Yeah.
So
So that is something I always like to bring up, and we're just about at that time I would want to ask anyway in the interview. So you sent me digital copies of book 1 and 2.
mhm.
Like you said earlier, book, I believe you said book 3 is getting lettered
No,
now,
4 is
correct? Or
getting
is that
letter.
book 4?
I think I sent you a review copy of book 3. Should be in the press kit I sent you. It's got no cover
Yes.
because
Yeah.
I didn't
Okay.
have a cover at
Yes.
the time. I have a cover now. It's right
So
there. I didn't have one at the time when I put that together.
so these books that are done, other than your letter or going through and speech
Yeah, yeah.
bubbling and doing the thing, these books are completely done. So when the folks out there back your book, which is already a successful campaign, so they will already for sure be getting their book. It's made. It's not something they have to wait for. What is your plan there for releasing it, given that they're done?
Well, the printing is not done, so all the digital files are done. So the idea is like I'm hoping I put the delivery date January, but I'm hoping to get this out before December if
Nice.
possible. Now there are some slowdowns because like I wait for people to finish their because like Kickstarter, you fill your Kickstarter out and then there's the pledge manager. So I wait for a bunch of people to do it at once, so I'm not taking like one issue out at a time, right? So I wait for a
Yeah.
bunch of people, but a lot of people just let their Kickstarter sit. So I write emails like, could you please just fill it out and I can get you your book. So not everybody got the book at the same time because basically it's like if you finished it first, then you went in that batch. And then I did a batch and then wait for another pile, and then I do that batch.
Oh.
Because if I waited for everybody, there'd be people waiting till like probably still now. Because there was I think there was like 6 just digital things that
Yeah.
I gave a warning. And what I did was I sent those digitals out, but then I have the ability to just go into the account and check out myself. Like I can't buy things. I don't have access to their credit card because the money's already paid through Kickstarter. I can go in there and close it out and be like, yeah, I'm good. And since it's digital, I don't have to confirm any address.
Oh,
So
okay. Yeah. Yeah.
I just email it to them because they've already gave me their email when they went on Kickstarter. So I was able to get everybody out their stuff. There was only
Right. Yeah. You could just send it to them.
Yeah. So there was only one person I was waiting for that I was like trying to find him as many. I was like, you have books here. I need to send them to you. You're the last physical person left. I just want to get you your books. Just all you have to do, it's like it's all paid for. Your information's already there. Just go there, read it, and be like, okay, that is correct. And then I can send it to you. Because I can't send it to you until you confirm it, because who knows if that address is right. So
Exactly. They might have moved. They might have done 10,000 things between now and then.
so I'm trying to
Wow.
get like book 3, since I have all the art and everything for that done. I'm trying to get that out to the printers as early as next week. But book 4, like I said, it's getting lettered now. So that won't be like, it's getting lettered now. So good chances are that won't be for another 2 weeks, because even if I get the lettering next week, I'm absolutely going to find something wrong. Not because they're not good. It's just because they don't speak English. My letterer is also in
That'll
Italy.
help.
They're also in Italy, so it's harder for them to catch little mistakes. And it might be a little mistake
Yep.
from a copy paste, or maybe they typed something in by themselves, but they won't know. They won't know little nuances. A comma's missing, a period's missing,
Yep.
the wrong instance of a word is. So I'm gonna double check that. Once that's done, then put that out. So book 3 so I'm hoping to get book 3 out to the printers as early as next week, and book 4 probably in the next 3 weeks. That's my goal.
Basically, so by the time the campaign is over, everything should be at the printers, if not basically back within your possession, done. Knock on wood, no printing issues, nothing's clipped, nothing's weird, sized wrong, pixelated, blah, blah, blah. But that's awesome. That is super timely. That's basically campaign ends, money's collected, book is mailed.
Yeah, and that's what I like to do. I don't like people waiting. Like, I understand people are used to it. On Kickstarter, you back a board game, you can wait 2-3 years for a board game to show up. So I get it, but I'd like to also get it out as fast as possible. I want it to get into people's hands. And if I can get it into their hands by Christmas, excellent. Maybe you can buy it. Somebody can buy it for Christmas as a gift.
Right. Merry Christmas.
And and Halloween, like the month of Halloween, which is October, right? October's Halloween month. It's having a dark comedy out there is a pretty good time to have it. Vampires, werewolves, bats, zombies. Yeah, it's a good time to have that. So yeah.
I mean, October is definitely your month. It's going to help out. I think the fact that the book is funny, lighthearted, is going to appeal to a lot of people. Personally, I enjoy the writing. I think you write innocuous, stupid interest, people's idiosyncrasies and all that stuff fantastically. You make very human characters. I enjoy that part. Like, one of the things that I've heard, I think it was from Jason Lapidus. It might have been from Group of 7 Comics. And do forgive me if I'm misquoting this or misattributing to this, but basically someone was like, it's really easy to write a fun action scene. It's really hard to write a boring conversation. And you can do that. So kudos to you, Mark. Keep going.
You. I actually enjoy writing those boring conversations. And one of the things when I'm writing the conversations, I try not to, last thing I want to do is have like a character that their whole goal is just to describe everything that's going on, right? I want to believe that I have faith that the readers, they're intelligent people, they'll figure it out, right? So the way everybody talks about things is very like, I don't have to explain every last thing to you. You understand, you'll figure it out. It's kind of like you're listening on somebody's conversation. You may not have all the backstory, but then you're like, okay, I get it. I get what's going on. And that's how I want to have it. And funny, you stopped on the screen. I wanted to point out that I actually drew that pink cover.
With the bunnies?
Yeah, the bunnies. I drew those bunnies. So
nice.
Yeah. So that's my cover. John Little, who's he was nominated for the Doug Wright Award. He drew that the yellow cover, and I've known John for a few years, and he's got a very John style to him, is the way I can say it. So I knew what I was getting. Like, I didn't know exactly what I was getting, but I knew what I was getting. When I asked John, so I was like, okay, I'm ready. And I gave him this idea. I was like, here's the idea I have for a cover. I was like, Mr. DeLuca's mouth, he's got the glass, he's tilting it. My thing was like a triangle with some stick people falling out of it into a gaping letter C. And I was like, something like that. And then he came back with that, and he was like, what do you think? And I was like, it's so you. It's so you. It's exactly what I what I wanted, because when it comes to elite covers, I want to be able to have like artists express themselves, right? And I
Mhm.
want the different styles, and I want to see something unique. So when he did it, he sent it back to me with the regular so-called living title treatment, the red, which is the basic. That's what's on the standard covers. But I made it. I
Yeah.
was like, it doesn't fit for you, so I'm going to make a special version for you. So I designed the so-called living logo like this to look almost like a bad photocopy. You know what I mean? That's what it kind
Yeah.
of looks like a bad photocopy. It's on there, and I feel that suits the yellow. And then we actually had another artist for book 4. Things didn't work out, so I was like, well, Kickstarter's coming out in a week. I need a cover, and I'm swamped with work. So I was like, I got to do it myself. So I stayed up late, and I was like, what am I going to do? I was like, you know what? I think I want to do something with bunnies. And eventually, originally I was just going to draw one bunny and have him on the center.
Okay.
And I was like,
Yeah.
no, I want more bunnies. So I kept drawing bunnies, and then I was like, you know, I think I'm going to make this like a tribute to the Blood Bunny Colony, which is people who bought the keychain in the first Kickstarter. They're automatically entered into the Blood Bunny Colony, which is basically an email list, and then you get discounts or some sort of benefit for all future so-called living Kickstarters. So anybody who bought the keychain in the first Kickstarter is either getting a automatic upgrade to the standard or elite. So if you got the standard, you'll get the elite. If you get the elite,
nice.
you'll get the spot. Or if but it doesn't work all the way up. You can't get the sex pot and to get the all in, because that's the next level. It's like, it doesn't work that way. But also if you if you get the sex pot one, or if you get the standard and you don't want the upgrade, then I'll send you a package of like limited edition stickers and a print. So that's the other option.
Oh, okay, cool. So there's some options, some variety there. That's cool.
Yeah. But the thing is, like, and anybody who buys the keychain in this one, they'll also be added to the list. And then future, every future Kickstarter, you'll just be able to get a discount. And here's my favorites, my sex pot covers. These are awesome. I love the way these came out. And
now, who were the artists on these ones?
This was one artist, Larry Twasson. And I should have brought it for this video. He does this traditional pencil and ink. So he records himself drawing. He's drawing on pencil, and then he inks it by hand. And he sends me the print, the originals. So the originals are like this big. So he actually sends me the actual version he did.
Wow.
So I pay him to draw a cover. He sends me the actual. He hasn't sent me the one with all the girls yet. The fight, the scrap. He hasn't sent me that one yet. But so that one should be on route. And it's great. I love that traditional feel, and I love get the originals. And he does like sexy women really well. And just like the first Kickstarter, I've put the badge of obligatory sex pot edition on them, because again, the whole idea is like, if you want to have a successful comic book on Kickstarter, you need to have a sexy cover. Now, obviously, that's not true, because my friend Derek crushed it and he doesn't have any sexy covers. But if you look at the highest ranking, like highest money makers, Lady Death is way up there. And there's so many big boob bikini women in space, whatever. Like, there's so much of that. So I was like, there's nothing sexy about my book. So I thought, but let's have fun with it, right? So I wanted to match the book, and I thought just putting a sexy, like, naked woman on the cover doesn't match. So then I was like, okay, first of all, let's do two things. First of all, they'll never be nude. They're not nude. If they are, they'll be covered up, right? And secondly, I was like, I want to put the badge. I want to create this obligatory sex pot edition badge, because that plays in with the humor of the comic. Because in the comic book, they're like, that's what you got to do to be successful. That's what we're going to do. So it plays in with that. So that's why it fits. And these aren't just random either. Like in book 3, there's a line about there's always zombies in pools, like, type of thing. And there's a shot of a pool full of zombies. So I was like, well, let's have like a sexy zombie girl coming out of the pool. Like, if you see, she's actually eaten up on her shoulder. Like, she's a zombie girl. And so she's coming out of a pool full of zombies. And I made the treatment on that one. I put the title treatment. I gave it like a purple haze, because the colorist put like this purple glow on it. And then I extended the purple glow into the pool a bit, because if you can't tell from here, but if you look closely, the purple haze in the pool is actually the reflection of the so-called living in the pool. So it's almost like the so-called living is giving off a purple light, and it's actually reflected in the pool. And it's actually around her is a little purple highlight that I added. So that was that. And for this book 4 is, if you remember, the book 4 of the standard is the fighting. Everybody's fighting. Everybody's, Nick's on top. He's like,
Oh,
that.
smart.
So that's book 4. So, and it's all guys in that. And there's one girl on that cover, but she's one of the main characters. So I was like, if this fight takes place in this location, it's all guys. I was like, let's say all the girls at the location had their own scrap, and like, what would that cover look like? So I got Larry Twasson to do a set. I was like, let's get him to do an entire set, and that was good. So that was, and at first when I got him, he was just going to do the Zombie Girl cover, and I was like, I'll find another artist to do the other Sex Pod edition. But then his partner, who he works with, she kept messaging me and being like, "Oh, what do you want for your second one? What do you want for your second cover? What do you want for your second?" And I was like, I don't want a second. Did I say I want a second? And they're like, "Oh, we're having like because I guess when I met Larry, they were having like a promo. They were like, yeah, we'll give you a discounted price on Larry's work, and you can get 2 books or two pieces of art." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, I don't want it right now, so I'll wait for books 5, right?" And then I was like, you know what? I'll do a set. Yeah. So I called him back and I was like, this is what I need. This is what I want to do. So, and he nailed it. So,
I mean, it definitely fits. I appreciate also the obligatory logo. That's funny, very on the nose. One thing that I've said, and it's come up a few times because I've interviewed people that have made sexy comics, or they've had the obligatory sexy covers, and it's like, hey, we're all adults, like, enjoy what you enjoy, whatever, it's fine.
Yeah, I like sexy things.
Yeah, and I like that one. You're reaching out to other artists, you're paying them what they need to be paid to be able to do their job. Awesome. And you know what? If someone's gonna get a kick out of it and it's gonna help you get your book out there, awesome. Like, it's a win-win. I don't know. I think it's great. And
these are
we've been going through.
There's only 300 of these.
Oh,
so beautiful. Once they're gone, they're just gone. There's no more. So
now, okay. So one thing I do like to ask is, one, as I understand it, Mark, you are local to Ontario.
Yep.
I don't like to get more specific than that unless you're comfortable doing so. But as a result of your geography, you've gone to Fan Expo. I believe you were at Comic-Con, though I don't think you tabled in March.
I didn't table at any of them. I just go. I go to comic because I've been going to Fan Expo since like 95, whenever it started, right? I've been always going to Fan Expo in Toronto because that's what I'm originally from. I don't live there now. I live in London, Ontario, which is like 2 hours away. But I was born and raised. My family's still there. So when I go to Fan Expo, I just stay at my mom's house. And I didn't table at any of those locations, but I always go because I like the show too much. So I don't think I'd actually table unless if they offer me a pro table, which I'm not at a pro level yet because I just started, but I'll just keep asking for a pro table every year. And then one year they do, and I'm like, I'll take it. Right. But because I'd like to be able to sit along the wall with those guys, right? It'd be really cool to do. But I don't think I ever worked a table in Artist Alley there just because I love the show too much. Like, I sit at the panels, I make a David, I go to lunch. It's like, and Toronto Comic Con, same thing. I like to go to all the panels, and that's where we met. I met you at a panel.
You're like me. Okay.
So I love those things. I spent every
interesting.
Like 4 days, open to close. I'm there the whole time.
Oh yeah.
So I love those
things.
Good
for you. It's interesting. Like, yeah, for me, when I go to Fan Expo, historically, it's especially the first couple of years, it was just a lot of like, oh my god, and then shopping. And then as I got more into doing my show and wanted to meet everyone, I would go around and talk to everybody. And then eventually, I hit a point where it was like, well, I'm going to talk to who I want to talk to, meet the new people, buy indie comics. And then basically after the first 2 hours, I would just sit in the same room because it would be like, oh, here's the sketch duel. And then I'd leave the room and go back in. Oh, here's the so-and-so panel, and leave the room and come. Here's the sketch. And that's all I would do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. I actually, for me, I think I burnt out a little bit. I didn't go last year just because, or this year, I should say, because it's been a lot. I've had a lot going on. took a little break. Now I'm back. But what I find interesting is I very much feel like you could do well here, or not here, I guess. I mean, at Fan Expo, because you've got enough books. They look right. They look professional. They look good. It's good content. So I feel like you could do it. Not that I think if you don't want to, don't. But are you planning on doing any other smaller shows?
Actually, there's because I want to try to find shows, but what I had a hard time doing is I didn't know where to find shows. I didn't know where to find this information. So in the beginning, for me, it was like, how do I get an artist? How do I get a printer? How do I do Kickstarter? That was my first things. Now that I have books, it's like, how do I find shows? Where do I find shows? How much are these tables? Can somebody share a table with me? So now I'm on my next part of my adventure. But I've been so busy getting ready for this Kickstarter and my YouTube with the YouTube channel. I haven't had time to really like dig in. But I did sign up. There's a show in Newmarket that's happening.
Yep.
And I'll be there.
Wayside Creator Con. Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So,
okay.
So I'll be there. And that was great because they were like $75 a table. I was like,
Done.
do it. Let's do it. Done. And like I was at London Comic Con, which is here in London, Ontario. And I got an Artist Alley table. And then they upgraded me to, because somebody came up to me like, oh, cool, you're in the pro area. I guess that means you didn't pay for your table. I was like, no, I paid for my Artist Alley table, but then I got upgraded. But the upgrade means you get to sit here with the pros. Doesn't mean they give you your money back. But it was cool.
Yeah,
I got to sit with Ben Bishop from Last Ronin, like the Ninja Turtles, Last Ronin. So I got to sit with him, and we were drinking beer because we were drinking beers. So I got him a beer the first night, the first day, and then he brought beers. He actually snuck beers in drinking. Well, we brought them in. We didn't think it was a big deal. It was like they serve beer here anyways, but apparently they don't serve beer there on Sundays for some reason. I don't know why.
Whoops.
First of all, I didn't know they serve beer there at all. And so when my wife brought me back a beer, and she brought Ben back a beer because we were just chatting, she's like, "I'll go get the guy some beers." So I was like, "Okay, great." So he was super nice. And the guy, one of the creators, I can't remember which one it was, from Ninja Turtles was there. I can't remember which one he was there. He was like 2 tables down. There was a lineup all day for him. All day for him. And the lineup was
Weissman, I think his name is.
I don't know if it was, I think it was Kevin to start with an S. I don't remember. Anyways,
something like that. Yeah.
So his lineup went right across our table, and people that saw us while they were in line were afraid to jump out. So the next day they came back and was like, "I saw you when you were in line." So they bought some books. Or some people that kept their friends in line and they came out to the table and they bought books for themselves and their friend. I was like, "Oh, that's awesome." And I like it when so this was a great compliment without being a compliment. Is one of the guys showed up at the table. It was 2 guys. They showed up at the table. One of them bought issues 1 and 2, and they bought these standard issues. They bought issues 1 and 2, and then I was talking to both of them, and they walked off, and I was like, great. And one guy saw my wife, who's wearing a So-Called Living shirt, and he's like, "I read your book, I loved it." And I was like, "Oh, that's cool." And she came back and told me. I was like, "Oh, that's nice." And then I don't know if he was just being nice, but then his friend comes by and he buys the 2 Elite editions. So I was like, "Oh, that's awesome.
Ooh.
You didn't just read your buddy's books. You actually came here to get your own. Or maybe you did read his books. You still came here to get your own."
I like that. That's cool.
So I was like, "Oh, that's cool." That was like a nice compliment. And I like it. I love it when people, that's probably my favorite thing, is when people is like, "Oh, my buddy told me about your book. He really liked it, so I came to get it." I was like, "Awesome. That's fantastic." That's
people.
my favorite thing. Yeah.
That is sick. Yeah, I think while we've been talking, I've been putting up the page, the different things. I just obviously have put this up.
There's the keychains. We make those like in this house. We make those keychains in this house. It's not like we get them made in China. I made that Illustrator file, and my wife cuts it upstairs in her laser cutting machine.
Ooh, all right.
And it stinks up the house because they're white and black acrylic. I can tell you that stuff it spits out poison. We have 2 air filters cranked when that thing is going, and the windows open, and still stinks. But at least the air filters help get it down faster, so it doesn't stink all day. Before we got the air filters, oh my god, I could eventually like leak down to the basement. It's like a heavy smell, and it just like made its way down. I'm like, I can smell that.
Yeah. I mean, they look damn good.
Oh yeah,
And
they are awesome.
yeah, so for the folks out there, we're in the last quarter of the interview here, but we haven't touched on this yet. So I have been showing sort of the different bundles and different covers that you're offering. Can you walk us through what, I suppose, for someone who's seeing this for the first time ever and they're like, oh my god, I want this book. Can you walk us through what it would run them to get a full set of 1, 2, 3, 4 digital and then 1, 2, 3, 4 physical?
Well, if you just wanted to get like one digital, like I said, is for free. You can just get that at Global Comics. There's issue 2 is on sale on Global Comics, but if you have a subscription there, I think you can just. I'm not exactly sure how Global Comics works, but it's there. I'm still like I just put it up there, so you can buy issue 2 on Global Comics. And so I don't have any packages for issues 1, 2, 3, and 4 digitally because 1 is free and you can get 2 on Global Comics, and you're going to be able to get 2 on different locations soon. So I'm going to be spreading those around so you can get issues 1 and 2 at different digital sites. But so that's why there's no package for them, because it's just cheaper for you to guys just go out there on the internet and find them. So it's fine that way. But I have the digital ones for 3 and 4 on the site. But if you go down to the bottom of the it's not the page. This is like you clicked yourself into a bundle package.
Yes, I did. Well, yeah, this is the when you click back this project, this is what you get. However, give me just a moment. I'll just click back.
Yeah, if you go down to the bottom, I put up some like catch-up collections, so you can get 1, 2, 3, 4 in either standard, elite, or sexpot, and that's at a discount. So I knock $5 off if you get all 4. So
nice,
and they all come with the digital ones as well. So it's physical and digital, and you get a discount. It's at the bottom. I think it's called. I think it's a section called Save. There it is. Save. That's it. So if you got like
save.
Yeah, so it's $5 off on each bundle, and I did the math. Basically, it's like if you got like the standard edition in both Kickstarters, it would cost you $50. So I knocked off $5. So, and you get all the digitals, you get all the physicals, and get them all nice and shipped to you. And because it's not, especially the physical ones. Right now, I have no distribution. So, like, if you want it, this is the best way to get it. I have no way to get it. I have no website that sells it currently. But I will be working with. Funny enough, you mentioned it. You introduced me to lesser known comics. You told me to talk to Mark Burnell from Lesser Known Comics, and I called him.
That's the man.
You, and it was funny because I emailed him, and he emailed back like right away, and I was like, "Do you respond?"
Well, he's quick with it.
Well, he said I got lucky because they were actually working on the site when I sent the email in, and he thought it was a test email that came in because he's like, he asked, he's like, "Did you just send me a test email?" He's like, "No." He's like, "Oh, a real email just came in." So he responded right away because he happened to be working on that section of the site. So then we probably talked on the phone for over an hour, and then I've been sitting in on their lesser known comics meetings, and I've been talking to Mark. I've been talking to Mark about him carrying these in his store, like the physical ones, the digital and physical ones. So when he goes to shows, he can carry them there. And for Lesser Known Comics is expanding. I don't know how much of that's public, so I'm not going to say much more. But he's asked me to be on like their team to help put that together. So like that's a relationship that's grown. So it's really good. So like, thank you very much for introducing me to Mark. He's a great guy. Everybody at Lesser Known Comics was great. And when we did that, and just for anybody listening, the reason that even happened, the conversation between me and Konrad happened was because I was like, I don't know anybody in comics. I don't know it. Like I know people in board games, I know people in video games. I know nobody in comics. I don't know who to talk to. None of my friends like that I hang out with read comics. They're not like arty creative people. They're different. Like one of them works construction. That's a different type of creative. And the other ones are like, I'm happy not being the creative person. You know what I mean? Like they're not in the same circles. They're not trying to create indie comics. So I was like, I need indie comic people. So when you introduced me to Mark, I told him the exact same thing. I was like, I'm not necessarily looking to like jump in on Lesser Known Comics. I just need a group of people to work with or to talk to. I mean, just talk things through. And in the beginning, I held their meetings up so long because they're like, any questions? And I was like, I have 20. And but they were so nice. And we talked through all the questions, and it was great. And now I'm giving back. Now I'm able to help them, which is awesome. So because I have my expertise, because I've been working 25 years in the video game industry, so they're looking for people with different professionals, different professions that could possibly help them with different things, different aspects of their company. So they've asked me to help them out. So I was like, I'm more than happy to help them out. So yeah, it's great. So that's exciting. And that was all thanks to you. So thank you very much.
Yeah. Hey, no problem. I'm happy to help. And
you need to know, like, you made a big difference, right? Like, when I had somebody ask me the question once. I was at this like management retreat, and they were like, "What changes have you ever made in somebody's life that mattered? Like, what have you ever done to make a change in somebody's life?" Somebody asked me, and I was like, "Nothing." Like, they're talking about professional. I was like, "Nothing." Like, I don't know. All the people, like, I've worked with artists, and I've hired them, but they were great anyways. If I didn't hire them, somebody else would hire them. Like, I didn't. I don't feel like I did anything to help anybody. Like, I did, like I did my best to help people, but I don't think I did anything important that changed their lives or changed anything in them. Or if I did, nobody's ever told me anything, right? Like, maybe I did, nobody's ever told me. So I wanted to let you know that your little comment made a big difference. Like, that made a big difference. That helped me out a lot, and it put me in contact with Mark and that group, and they're awesome. So that was all thanks to you. If it wasn't for you, that would have never happened.
Well, yeah, man. Thank you for telling me. That makes me feel great, and I am glad you've been able to work with them. Anytime I've interviewed them, hung out with them, chatted, it's always been good. Like one of the folks who's on the team now, Doug Knight. I've hung out with him a few times.
Yeah, he's in Toronto, right?
Yeah. Love him. He's hilarious. Oh yeah. Another guy, David. I absolutely think that man is incredible. So yeah, good team of people. I'm glad you're working with them. That's great to hear.
Yeah, Doug's told me about the Newmarket con. He's the one that told me about it.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, Omar, the guy who runs my God, the name of the place
Wayside?
Is just totally thank you.
Wayside?
Yeah, yes, okay. It's Wayside. They have a tavern in the back, Wayside Tavern. Delicious food. But yeah, Omar, who runs Wayside, absolutely awesome. I love the guy. I think he does wonderful things for the comics community. So he would be another person, if you get a chance, talk with him.
What I didn't even know Wayside was a tavern. Yeah. So when Doug told me about it, he's like, "Oh, it's showing Newmarket." He's like, "The guy Wayside's putting together." I was like, "Okay, I don't know what that is, but I'll reach out to him." So I looked on Instagram, Wayside. I was like, "Hey, you putting together a show?" He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Okay, so there's a guy who's got an Instagram channel." So I didn't even know. And then you're mentioning like a pub, or what is it? A pub?
Yeah. So for those out there, I will more than happily promote Wayside Comics anytime. So Wayside is up in Newmarket. The front. The store front, I guess you'll call it, is like Wayside Comics proper. Is One Comics collectibles. They've got awesome coffee and other drinks and alcohol and stuff. So when you first walk in, you're just surrounded by cool stuff. They've got usually TV pumping some sort of awesome nerdy goodness. And then there is a beautiful bar. And typically when I've been there, I forget her name. When I've typically gone, the woman behind the counter is a petite lady, huge glasses, loves insects, so she's got jewelry and stuff all over. Makes a wicked coffee. They do all sorts of drinks. She's quick with it. She's super nice. And then in the back half of the store, not the back half of the store, you actually have to technically leave the store and walk around the building. Then there's Wayside Tavern, where it's a further chunk of bar. On top of that, they have a full kitchen, and they make a wicked chicken sandwich. I can't speak well enough about it. It's such a cool spot. So that's Konrad pitching Wayside Comics and Tavern. And yes, the show that's going on, Wayside Creator Con, is actually taking place in a brewery. So it's not going to be like a Comic-Con, although there are tables and everything. But I have a feeling it will be more relaxed. At least that's what the vibe I'm getting from Omar, what he's explaining to me. And with any luck, again, this is not like nailed down, but I may or may not be helping with panels, so we'll see.
Nice. Excellent. That's great. So I'll see you there. I'm bringing
yes.
At my table, I usually have my because bunnies is a motif, and that's something I haven't mentioned. If anybody hasn't noticed, there's like bunny silhouettes in the background of
Lots
those
of bunnies.
images. So, and there's a bunny keychain. It's not like that's just not a random thing. There's this kind of underlying bunny storyline that's kind of like building up in the background. It's brewing, and eventually Jack's story and this whole mob thing will intersect with this bunny situation. But I always have my wife and my friend Jess at our table, and we have bunny ears for them to wear, and they have white tank tops that say so-called living, and they're always there. So people know them as, oh, it's the bunny girls. It's not like Playboy bunnies. They're not like, half naked. They're wearing jeans, white sneakers, and white tank tops that say so-called living, and they have the bunny ears. But the idea was like, I wanted to do like, it's important to me that there was two of them, right? Because just one girl wearing a tank top that says so-called living, bunny ears, just the one girl doing that. But when you see two, it's like a pattern.
It's a thing.
Yeah, it's like, oh, that's on purpose. So that works out really well because people see them walking around the show and they're like, hey, that's from that table, or that's cool, I recognize you. So it puts that all together. And at this show at Wayside Show in Newmarket, my wife's going to be there, but we have a different bunny coming in. And she's like, I've known her since she was born. She's in her 20s now. Oh. She's in her 20s now, but I've known her since she was born. And she was in our some of the ads we put out earlier on for books 1 and 2. I did this ad where a girl's in the subway and she's reading a book, and the book is like flickering, and it's the different covers. It's like a bad reception, and it looks like and ears are flickering.
Oh, that's cool.
And I did that ad. And that was her. And she said she wanted to help at the tables. And then she saw pictures of me at the tables with the other girls. She was like, why didn't you ask me to help? And I was like, oh no, those shows were in London. Because she lives in Toronto. I was like, no, those were in London. She's like, oh, okay. I was like, I wasn't going to make you come to London to work for free at a table. Because I'll tell you that one thing, it's volunteer basis. Like I asked them, and I have great friends to help me that way, is I'll buy you lunch. Any passes you need to get into the show, obviously that I just pay extra, I pay for. So you're not paying for anything that day, but you're also not getting paid for that day because we're not that popular. So I asked her, I was like, yeah, if you want to come help out Newmarket, because we're going to drive through Toronto to get to it. So we'll pick you up. And she's like, yeah, I want to do it. I was like, okay, excellent. So we'll see how she does.
Sick.
Yeah.
I mean, that's cool. I would definitely say if you're going to have her there, in the outfit, somehow, whether it's on an iPad or something, if you can show that image on the table and it could be like, oh my god, you're the girl, that'd be cool. But I am so glad you have so much support from friends, from family, to be able to do all this stuff, because it's important. It's extremely important.
It is.
And
doing this all by yourself is it could be
a slog,
a shit show of stress. Like you're just going to knock yourself out. Like it's so much work involved in getting this done, especially if you're the kind of person that's like, I'm going to be the artist and the writer and the this and the that. I'm going to do it all. Like that's a lot of work.
Burn yourself out doing it. Yep.
And that's what my buddy Derek's doing. And he's got kids. He's got 2 kids. He's got his other contract work, and he's doing this. But I'm guessing he's doing so well on his book that he should be able to like knock down like I don't think he has to have his regular day job contract, where I do. I have to have a regular day job. So anytime I do this is after hours. It's basically deduct that from family time or stay up late. So
exactly, yeah.
So
awesome. Well, Mark, on that note, we've got a minute left in the hour. No, I love it. That's fantastic. We have talked so much about the book, about you. I feel like for sure people who have never seen you before, they've got a really good sense of who you are, and if they're getting your books, who they're supporting, which is important to me. I love that you've said it yourself. You're from London. So if anyone's in London, Ontario, you want to support a local creator, So-Called Living, the links actually are in the chat for YouTube and Twitch. A real quick shout out at the beginning of the interview, or just beforehand. Brittany Maia says hi.
Hey. I wonder if my son's watching with her.
Oh, perhaps.
He might be
yeah, but I guess one last question I have for you, Mark. Just something fun, something easy. When it comes to comic creators, I often find people who create comics, also read comics.
Mm.
And if you read comics, you tend to, like myself, collect things, whether they're comics, whether they're, I've interviewed someone who collected stamps, all sorts of interesting things. Just from your background, it might be photography equipment or board games, because I know you also do board games.
I do.
But what is something in your collection that may not be the most valuable, may not be the most rare, but makes you the most happy?
Oh, I have so many things in my collection that make me happy. But I think first thing that comes to mind. Well, I guess my son is
Daddy's
watching.
on TV. Love it.
But the first thing that comes to mind is I have the first appearance of Kingpin autographed by Stan Lee.
Oh, that's cool.
I bought that issue. I bought that issue when I didn't even know that was the first appearance of Kingpin. I just loved that cover. And because that's one of my favorite Spider-Man covers. So him walking away. It's like Spider-Man No More or whatever it says on it. So
yep,
I bought that. And then and they're like, oh, the first appearance of Kingpin. I was like, why is this issue so expensive? And they're like, oh, it's first appearance of Kingpin. Got bought a while ago. It wasn't that bad, actually. I think I paid like $100 for it or something. So
nice.
First appearance of Kingpin, I think $100 worth it. And it's in really good condition. It wasn't slabbed, which I don't like buying slabbed books because I can grade my own book. You know what I mean? Like I'm good. I've collected for so many years. I can look at a comic book and be like, this is in good condition. If you put this in the slab, you can charge me $600 for it. So anyway, so I bought the book.
Yeah.
I bought it and I didn't even know Stan Lee was at that fan expo. So I just got in line and I was like, here you go. And he signed my book. So I talked to Stan Lee and he signed my book.
Now
so
that's the cool part. Damn.
Yeah, so that's probably one of my favorite collectibles. And then if we went down the list, that'd be another hour show. I could just go through a bunch of things.
That's fair, but that is fantastic. And also, real quick, I did want to mention that's the coolest part. I know a lot of folks who collect for the value. I've known people who do the comic spec market, which if you can do it and you understand it well enough and you're fast enough on it and you can make money at it, good for you. I genuinely am a little jealous and support it. But like for me, yeah, like I don't know if it'll come out well. Oh yeah, you can't see it. This very overlit comic is Batman and Robin. Yeah, it's Batman and Robin #1 from the New 52. Yeah, exactly. Nice. But it's got on it. I met the artist, or not the artist, the writer on it, and he was like, I asked him like, "Would you sign my book?" And he's like, "Do you want it personalized?" And I was like, "That's an option." Because this is very early on in my time doing cons. And he's like, "Oh yeah, I'd love to." And I'm like, "Do it." And he's like, "What's your name?" And I'm like, "Well, it's Konrad." And he goes, "Cool." And he's like, he wrote such that like a speech bubble on. And he wrote, "Welcome to Konrad," or "Welcome to Gotham, Konrad." And then he signed his name. And I'm like, that's super cool. Because like that kind of stuff to me is so important. So when people come out and say, if you're doing a show, come to Get So-Called Living, which they should, and they should also back the campaign that we're talking about, you can put a sign on the book, maybe do a remark, do whatever you're going to do, and that way they can have that cool story of, hey, I got to meet Mark, I got to meet Mark, and they have something cool to tell you. But yeah, that is awesome. You got to meet Stan Lee, and that it just worked out. I
did do a custom cover sign for because I have this $5 donation thing. Like if you pay $5, I'll sign your book. So I get a little extra donation.
Oh, love it.
Like at the cons, I'll sign your book for free. Like I'm not charging for my signature. I'm asking to help me produce this book. So like every little bit helps, right? But for the first person, the guy who backed it and the #1 backer, I like wrote a little thing in gold markers, like thanks for being #1, blah, blah, blah. So I wrote a whole little thing on his.
Oh, that's cool.
And Marco's. And I think that was the only ones that I wrote anything on. Everybody else just got my signature. And most of that is because I'm very self-conscious of my writing, my handwriting. And I hate writing when people are watching me. So even my signature, I get nervous. And I've messed up a few books. Like, well, that's garbage. And let's try that again. So
it'll come with time. Yeah. But yes, Mark, absolutely. I want to say thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show and talk So-Called Living with me tonight, man.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on. And please back So-Called Living. Every bit helps. Thank you.
Yes. Link to it is in the comments below, folks. Mark, it is genuinely a blast having you on every time. And for the folks out there, again, go back that campaign. Possibly go see Mark at a show. And if you're local to the GTA or Newmarket on October 27th, Newmarket Creator Con, go meet Mark, go get his books. And yeah, we'll see you next time.
Golden age to present, digest to oversize. Never miss new comic day. Yeah, no surprise. So where's my no prize? Check the letter columns. Can't find issue 2? Nah, collector problems.